Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. It's so interesting to me that we all swear an oath to the Constitution, and we say that we take that oath seriously, but when it comes into actually doing something that looks like preserving that oath or looks like preserving the Constitution, we get a little...
Before we get into today's breakdown, let me ask you this. Have you ever watched a moment in politics so blatant, so revealing, that it almost feels like you're seeing the curtain pulled back in real time? Because that's exactly what we're stepping into. Today, Representative Jasmine Crockett delivers a moment that many people are calling one of the clearest demonstrations yet of how deeply certain parts of the Republican Party appear influenced, aligned, or at the very least echoing narratives that line up perfectly with Russia's interests. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, let's unpack what's about to happen. In this video, Crockett doesn't just make a claim. She walks the room through a series of undeniable facts, on-the-record behavior, and real-world contradictions that force a very uncomfortable question. Why does it seem like key Republican voices are avoiding even the most basic acknowledgement of Russian aggression? And as we go through it, I'll break down exactly why this moment matters, what it signals about the current political climate, and what it might mean moving forward. Stick around, because my thoughts at the end will tie everything together.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. It's so interesting to me that we all swear an oath to the Constitution, and we say that we take that oath seriously, but when it comes into actually doing something that looks like preserving that oath or looks like preserving the Constitution, we get a little wobbly, and I'm not really understanding what's going on. Freedom of press doesn't look like kicking out the Washington Post, or actually the Huffington Post has been kicked out. We know that the Associated Press has been kicked out, and now the Washington Post is not going to allow for op-eds in any way if for some reason they criticize the sitting president of the United States. What this is starting to feel like is a smaller version of Russia. And I am trying to tell you that we are nothing like Russia. We are not supposed to be like Russia, but that is what we've got going on. And I'm sorry, I know that some of my colleagues still struggle with answering the question of who won the election in 2020. And you may have felt a way when you had social media checking people and saying, no, Trump did not win the election in 2020. That is absolutely factual. And unfortunately, because some people got all riled up because they believed the lies, they ended up getting locked up because they decided that they were going to believe the lies. They ended up at the Capitol on January 6th, and they were trying to tear this thing apart because they felt like their country was falling apart in front of their eyes because for whatever reason, there were people in power that were peddling a lie about the election. We also know, and some of y'all may still say that COVID was a hoax. COVID wasn't a hoax. Tell that to the over 1 million people that died under Donald Trump's first watch. It wasn't a hoax. So no, I do believe that it was okay. In fact, I do believe that it was ethically right for social media to check people because you had people that didn't know anything about science and decided that they were going to put out whatever lies or propaganda or conspiracy theories they wanted to, and people died. At some point in time, we have to evaluate what is factual, and I know that facts hurt y'all, and I just wish we could get on the same page, but we do know during the presidential election that the president would not go and participate in anything if fact-checking was going to be a part of it, because he didn't want to be fact-checked. We know that the vice president got upset in his vice presidential debate when he was fact-checked. It used to be a time in this country that we as members of Congress or elected officials thought that it was okay to just tell the truth. Instead, we're pushing conspiracy theories, and some of them are killing people. It's the same thing that we have coming out of Doge. It's the reason that people are dying. It's the reason that farmers are losing their farms, because we continue to peddle conspiracy theories. It is time for us to say, Mr. President, guess what? Russia invaded Ukraine. Can we at least agree on that one? Facts matter. Y'all, this is literally potentially putting us into an international crisis. We may be heading towards the next world war because we have a president that wants to pal around with Putin and wants to do everything to make him feel good, including lying about who invaded who. Mr. Chair, I got a minute left, but I really want to yield to any of my colleagues and ask them if they will say today, very basically, that when it came down to the war in Ukraine, that it was not Ukraine that invaded Russia, it was the other way around. Is there anybody in here that has enough courage to say that Russia invaded Ukraine?
You can have my time.
And this is yet the problem. This is the problem. That is not infringing upon free speech.
Will the gentlelady yield?
I will yield to the right.
Thank you, Ms. Crockett. To be clear, your challenge, I think, was across the aisle, because I think every member on your side of the aisle agrees with the obvious fact that Vladimir Putin ordered the filthy, bloody, imperialistic invasion of Ukraine. And in fact, at the time, Donald Trump as president never denied it. In fact, he praised it. He said it was, quote, an act of genius when Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine. So I would hope some of our colleagues would consent to at least that historical point, since we think history is so important. There are people who want to relive that in our oversight report.
What happened after Jasmine Crockett asked her question was honestly the most revealing part of the entire moment. She simply said, "Can anyone here acknowledge that Russia invaded Ukraine?" And the room went silent. Not a single Republican voice stepped forward. There was one faint response, and it didn't even seem to come from their side. But from the people who claim to value strength and clarity, nothing. And that silence speaks louder than any argument. Because these lawmakers weren't always like this. Before Donald Trump, many of them openly supported Ukraine, praised its fight for sovereignty, and pushed for U.S. assistance. You can go back and see them on record saying it. But now, their entire tone has shifted. Their positions suddenly line up perfectly with whatever Trump says, and that is exactly why this silence is so telling. If they truly wanted to push back on Crockett's point, all it would have taken was one sentence. Yes, Russia invaded Ukraine. It's factual, documented, and universally known. But they couldn't bring themselves to say it. And that hesitation shows how much influence one individual now has over the party. Watching this from the outside, it feels less like independent leadership and more like a political echo chamber. A moment where the truth becomes optional and alignment becomes mandatory. And that's what makes this so concerning. Because when leaders can't acknowledge something this basic, it raises serious questions about where their loyalty is actually anchored.